The next video in our annual highlight series is for the 1966 model year. 1966 had some interesting changes that came about, and these are the color combinations here for 1966. Interestingly, there are two different whites. Arkona white was first came out in 65 and then carried into half of 1966 when Lotus White was released and replaced Arkona white cars. You can see it's a little bit more eggshell colored, a little more ivory colored than the Arkona white color. The other color that was saw a return for the first time since 1962 was the black. The black colored cars came back in 1966. So 1966 has a few really good quality cars, but by far the most impressive and original preserved car is that of Michael Newman from Stuttgart, Germany. His Lotus White late 66 Coupe is absolutely preserved original. Has all the known owners. It was originally sold in Lübeck, Germany, and eventually was bought by the first owner family, which was a principal of a school, and they drove it sparingly and then sold it. Michael found it in March of 1991 in an ad and decided it was the right car to buy, and he was right. It has 65,000 original miles, 105,000 kilometers, and it has a really interesting 66 feature, which is the Pigalle interior, which is a red interior. We'll talk more about that later. You can see from the pictures of this car, it's understated in a monotone color, which was the standard beginning in 1966 in all color Lotus White. From the back you can see it's perfectly stock and has not been modified at all. You can see the back of this car shows the 1966 rear script, which says VW 1600. So this was the release of the first VW 1600 motor. Previous to that, they had a 1500cc high compression S model engine in 65. So 66, the 1600 motor came out. It dropped the compression back down so that regular gasoline could be used, which was a huge complaint of the S model cars by owners, that the engines were pinging because it couldn't use regular gas. The horsepower remained at 54 horsepower, just like the high compression motors were, but it had larger displacement at 1600, and it still used the dual carburetor system. Yeah, this car is just absolutely beautiful. You can see the mud flaps down on the bottom here that it came with that go up the edge of the rear fender, and the S is for Stuttgart in Germany. He put in a custom plate, of course, historical plate, and you can get a small glimpse of that red interior with the signature red dash pads and red steering wheel. Nice overhead view of the Type 34. Really shows off the extended window cockpit, the large front and rear windows, and the tiny pillars of the Type 34. 66 had the VW 1600 rear emblem and carried over the early style taillights like you see here. Interestingly, you can see that the rounded bumper guards, you can just see it in the picture right here, this part is rounded, were steel bumper guards versus the cast pointed style bumper guards. That was introduced in 66. The hubcaps and trim rings are also unique for 66 and 67. The holes of the beauty rings got much larger to match the holes in the steel rims, which were 4-lug rims. So this was a conversion to 4-lug in 1966, which were used all the way through the rest of production. The hubcap, you can see, clips on the outside edge of the rim instead of inside the rim as earlier cars did. And the best way to identify it is you can see this raised portion here of the lip of that VW logo for 66 and 67 cars. 66 was the first year for front disc brakes. although the rear still had the drum brakes. Here's a close-up of another view of those hubcaps, 2-year only hubcaps. Now the bumper guards were changed for 66 as well. You can see that this is the rounded style bumper guard here versus the much pointed style that was used earlier. And you can see the change in the license light lens. The lens is now flat and has ribs in it, which allows better visibility, better light on the license plate. Previous to that, it was an oval-shaped, long oval-shaped lens and metal trim piece. The inside of the Pigalle interior is very, very red. This came with colored steering wheel, colored ignition, colored turn signal, colored dash pads, colored carpeting, colored door panels, colored seats, colored pads, armrests, and so on and so on and so on. A lot of very unique colored items that were only used in 66. You can see that 66 was the first year to come out with carpeted floor mats. Previous to that, they were rubber. In this picture, you can see the dash with all the red. Really nice looking dash. 66 had silver knobs and bezels. You can see the rings here are silver. Previous to that, they were bronze in 65. And there was an accessory four-way flasher that was available to be fitted to your car but didn't come standard with it, which is why they raised the cigarette lighter in 65 higher. 66 was also the return of the half moon ring for the horn ring. Previous to that, it was a solid bar. And then in 66 also we saw black shift boot and black e-brake boot come through. The two-tone shift knob here, which is ivory and dark gray, matches the dark gray black shift boot for 66. Here are the seat material, which is unique for 66. It's sort of a basket weave material, but it's different than the modern VW basket weave material that you see in the later 60s cars. Again, the seat material for the back seat, the front seats were all red, the interior panels all red, all of the trim was red, and the carpet, the pads, everything. Even down to the red trim on the door lace here, and the plastic parts were all red as well for the heater outlets and the shift boots and so on. Here's a view of the other 1966 color interior option, which was called Teak, a brown color that again was all brown throughout the whole car, including the pads and all the trim. You can see the steering wheel here, the turn signal column, everything was brown. The back seat, you can see here, the footwell is carpeted and has tabs here to hold the carpet pieces into place. And if you look closely, you can see the red trim pieces for the seatbelt escutcheons and the red for the heater outlets back here in the bottom. Close-up view of the front seat, you can see that changed in 1966. The knob, the lift knob mechanism for releasing the seat back was now removed. Previous to that, there was a lift knob that allowed you to release the seat back. In 66 only, this seat back was never locked. So that's a unique feature for 66. In 67, they came out with a cable release system. When the door was opened, a cable would be pulled and the seat backrest would then be able to be released to allow the rear seat passengers to get out. Here's a close-up of that basket weave material as well. Again, the silver gauges here with the silver knobs, all matching white needles, really beautiful gauges. And this one shows 105,000 kilometers, which is 65,000 miles. Close-up of the fresh air controls, you can see a change in 1966 was to chromed plastic fresh air knobs. Previous to that, they were the silver gray, ivory color gray knobs that would match. In 66, they came out with chrome knobs here, just simply a cosmetic change. They were not metal, they were chrome-covered plastic. Another 66 feature was a vanity mirror that was added into the sun visors. And here you can see the red colored Pigalle part for the grab handle on the dash, as well as the upper and lower dashes, the plastic trim piece here, and the welting and the pads. I mean, all red throughout the whole car. Door panels are red, of course, and in 66 you can see that they introduced a solid ivory knob for the window winder handles. Previous to that, they were a plastic dished knob that was very fragile and easily broke. This domed knob replaced the dished knob on the 66 models and matched all of the other dome knobs on the dash, for instance, like the cigar lighter, the hood pull, the radio knobs, and so on. Here's a close-up of the dome knobs for that 66 model. Carpeted floor panels were added to complete the interior of a 66 model, and you can see the red plastic trim pieces all in this Pigalle interior. Only a few cars received the Pigalle interior or the teak interior. A regular black interior with black pads and black dash pads and all the black regular trim items was the most common for 66. Front seat knob to control the angle of the backrest was also red, and in 66 they came out with a new style with a chromed metal cover for that knob that was continued to be used through 69. The heater controls in the front footwell area had the red plastic packing material around it, and again red painted heater sliders. In the back seat area, footrest area, you can see the red was used for the rear heater vents and the red trim for all the carpeting materials. Another 66 feature was the chromed quarter window pop-out knobs. Previous to that, they were silver beige gray, and so these were exactly the same shape with the knurls on it, except it was chromed. And the rear tray shelf area was mainly painted black, which was a change from the silver beige color of earlier years, which also introduced the release of the black rear shelf seat latch rubber piece. Here you can see the black shift boot and e-brake boot that was most commonly used in 1966 cars. 1966 front hood had a decal on the front side of the hood, or the underside of the hood, sorry, that listed the tire pressures and values that you needed for the tires for 66. Previous to that, there was no decal for these pressures other than in the owner's manual. So, 66 model had some unique features. Really nice car, a lot more modern with the front disc brakes and the 1600cc motor. And this is one of the very best in the world, so we're really happy to feature Michael Newman's car and show you the Pigalle interior as well.